And then when the funding ran out, and then the visa also ran out. So I had to then go back. At that point, I had done over 5 years of research. I was exhausted. I was tired. I needed a vacation. I needed to just go rest for some time. So that was how I went to spend some time in Ghana as well, shuttling between Nigeria and Ghana as well. And then that was the time I had to make lots of applications.
Hello, Precious. How are you doing today?
Hi, Michael. I'm good. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. So thank you so very much for taking out the time to do this video with me. I first saw your interview with Deutsche Welle about Africans and Nigerians who are moving from the continent and coming to Germany and Europe, where you shared your views about that, your experience also in Germany. And I also watched those of other colleagues as well that talked during the show.
Yeah.
And that really inspired me, and I wanted to reach out to also bring your story over here. So I appreciate it that you are taking out the time to have this conversation with us. Before we continue, there is always something that I like to do during sessions like this, because everyone has like unique experience when it comes to moving abroad, living in Germany, or wherever that might be for you. I'd like to know, what are you very passionate about? Like when you see someone who is trying to go the same route as you did, what would you tell them? What is that thing that you feel like, hey, you have to know this thing?
Okay, I would like to say a big thank you to you for having me on your show, and I'm so glad to be here to share my little experience. I've lived for about a decade, thereabouts, in the UK and Germany combined. So at least to some extent, I have a little bit of experience, I would say, in things like this.
You have a lot of experience. You're being humble.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone who wants to come through this journey, I mean, it's quite a daunting task. One thing I would always advise is perseverance. It can be frustrating. Yeah, it can be challenging. There's so much uncertainty, when you have to leave your country and come abroad where you probably do not know how things operate or how things are being run or done. So it's more like going into a black box where you do not know what you're going to meet. So I would say keep a positive mindset, be persistent. Yeah, that is the key word. And just know that somehow, somewhere, there will be light at the end of the tunnel.
100%. Yeah. So moving forward, Precious, let's meet you. Tell us a bit about yourself and also your background so that people watching or listening to this can get to know you and probably maybe relate with your background if applicable to them.
Okay, my name is Precious Oti, and I am a researcher majoring in laser spectroscopy. I am originally from Nigeria, and I moved to Germany where I got a job. So initially I moved from Nigeria to the UK. After my undergraduate degree studies in Nigeria, I did chemistry as a bachelor's degree. And then I thought to myself, what next? And I wanted to further my education, and I went to the UK, Scotland, precisely the University of Strathclyde. I went and I did a master's degree in a course that's more or less like a bridge between chemistry and chemical engineering. And then after that, I had an opportunity to continue into a PhD. And then I grabbed the opportunity and then did a PhD in chemical engineering. Afterwards, I also then proceeded to do a one-year postdoc as well in the same university. And then I moved to Germany where I got a job. Although in between, I had a time in between where I moved back home, and then I was applying for jobs, and somehow I was persistent, like I said in the first question you asked, and I got myself a job in Germany. That's some bit of my story. So basically, I'm into research, and currently I'm working in research, and like I said, majorly in laser spectroscopy, so which is more or less like using lasers as a measurement technique to make measurements in reactors and other systems.
Very interesting. One thing that we are doing within our space, we have a social media platform that it's connecting and informing people about migration. One key thing which we are doing there is to speak to the young minds, especially people who are still back in secondary schools. I'm sure as a kid, you used to dream about something. We will come to that in a moment. You dreamed about something you want to become in the future. I don't know if you're living that dream today, but I know that for most kids growing up, they dream about something. And what we're doing at Settling is we want people to have access to a network of people that can shape them. And this is one key reasons why we have people like you on our show, so that if this is what they are looking forward to for themselves, that they can picture or see someone who's already there. Coming back to you, what was your dream like growing up? Is this what you envisioned? So you are now a postdoc researcher in the Technical University of
Yeah.
Hamburg. You love what you do?
Yes, of course. I mean, growing up as a child, I was born in Port Harcourt. And if
Okay.
you, Port Harcourt in Nigeria, I believe some of your audience or those who view this video will probably be from several other countries. So Port
Yeah.
Harcourt is a city in Nigeria, the South
Okay.
region. So if
Yeah.
you know Port Harcourt very well, it's called the oil city.
100%.
So exactly. So being born in Port Harcourt, what you would see probably when you come out of your mother's womb is oil companies everywhere.
Yeah.
So the dream was to work in an oil company, become a chemical or mechanical engineer. And
Okay.
you have Shell, Ajip, and a few other companies, and most of their workers would have this hard hat at the back of their vehicle. So from the back windscreen, you can see the hard hat, and you have the Shell or NMPC logo on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a child, I was fascinated by that. Yeah. So exactly. So I'd always wanted to do stuff in mechanical or chemical engineering. And growing up, when it was time to get admission, unfortunately, I found myself in chemistry, but somehow I found my way to reroute back to chemical engineering. So fate has a way of playing these things around.
Awesome. Awesome. No, this is great. I mean, times have really changed a lot compared to say 10 years ago, and definitely 15, 20 years ago. And it will keep changing that way, sadly or luckily, whatever, depending on, what you see for yourself. But one thing that we see for sure is that more and more people don't have access to how they can tap into global opportunities. And now, which brings me to the point of how were you able to transition from your undergraduate studies back in Nigeria to postgraduate studies abroad, the UK, and then finally landing a job in Germany? I just want to understand how were you able to learn about these opportunities and then, go after it?
I think to a large extent, it stems from where you see yourself. So, as an individual, I believe everyone has a goal, has a set point for their lives for where they want to be in the next 5 years or 10 years. Like they'll say, what's your 5-year career plan? Where do you see yourself in 10 years if you go for job interviews? So, I believe every individual growing up has a plan or a picture, like you said, as a kid. Everyone has a picture for their lives. So, for myself, I'd wanted to further my education. I'd always wanted to do a master's degree after my bachelor's degree. But in Nigeria, we have to go for this 1-year national service, youth service.
That's right.
So after my bachelor's degree, I had to go for the 1-year national youth service. But that was the time I used to reflect and also make my plans for going abroad to do my
100%.
master's degree. So during that period, I had to reflect. I asked myself what I wanted to do. And even where I did my national service, I was asked to stay back for some time to continue work because they were happy with how I worked during my service. But I had wanted more. I had wanted to go further my education. So despite the offer to stay back, I opted to leave and go further my education. So the thing ties into where you see yourself. Now, when we talk about traveling abroad, I've known some folks who didn't want to travel abroad. And right now, some of them want to travel abroad. Now, the question is what changed? Some people just want to go study abroad as a means of leaving the country, what we call Japa. Probably because the economy in the country is not doing so well. So the goal has changed. Okay, now I think I want to leave the country, and the best route is to go study. So I believe everything ties into what is your motivating factor. For me, it was not a question of Japa. Because like I said, I left roughly 10 years ago to go to a master's over 10 years. So for me, it was my motivating factor was my career, what I wanted to do, where I saw myself in the next 5-10 years. Exactly. So I knew I needed a master's degree. So that was my 100%. Motivating factor. So the motivating factor would be key, I would say, for every individual.
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar to me as well. Back then in 2012, when I graduated from the University of Ilorin, and then I went for my service in Zamfara State same year. Actually, before 2020, 2012, I'd already started looking up options where to further my studies.
Mm,
My goal was just to further my studies abroad. I felt like, okay, I've had the opportunity to live in different parts of the country growing up. I was born in Benue State, the Middle Belt, and then I had the opportunity to study in Kwara State, so Ilori, and between I was, at some point in Abuja or in Lagos, and then finally served in the North, Gusau. So I've had the opportunity to live in the six geopolitical regions of the country. And then I just wanted to see other parts of the world, because I felt like I've explored Nigeria and I wanted to have a different educational experience, and potentially work experience as well. But yeah, you're right. Things have changed now. The motive is mixed. Some
exactly.
people want to leave the country because of the economic situation. Others genuinely want to go further their studies, get exposure, or just check what is happening on the other side of the world.
Mm.
You know, but now comes the point of how do you do this? How do you get the means to do this? Maybe you could walk us through your own experience with funding your studies abroad through masters and PhD, because this is a major challenge for many people. They would love to do it, but then the funding part becomes very challenging for them. So how did you go about yours?
Yeah, so basically, when I was studying, a lot of people do reach out to me, and then one of the things I tell them that the greatest challenge is funding. Funding is one of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
greatest challenges to come study abroad. Yeah, in my own
Mhm.
case, I was a bit lucky. I was sponsored by my family to come do the master's degree, and
Okay.
so I was sponsored by my family. And then when I came to do the master's degree, I was discussing with my project supervisor, because you do like a project towards the end of the master's degree. And
Hmm.
we were discussing the next steps for me. So he asked me, what's my next step? What do I want to do next? Would I be happy
Yeah.
to do a PhD and all of that? Yes, of course.
Hmm.
I said yes, that I would be happy to, do a PhD if I secure funding, because the fee for the PhD would be paid for 3 years. So whatever it is you paid for, like the 1 year master's degree, you would have to pay that amount times 3,
No way.
for the PhD. And if
Mhm.
if you have an idea of what it is to pay the fees in the UK, it's quite
Yeah. Yeah.
expensive. So
Mhm.
I expressed interest, and then one thing I would always advise people is networking as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I did a lot of networking. But as luck would have it, my supervisor told me that there's funding in the department and that I should
Okay.
apply. So I applied. It was competitive, but I was chosen as one of the people to come to the PhD with the funding. So that was
Yeah.
how I got
Okay.
the PhD position. But then it was a
Mhm.
partial funding. It was this
Okay.
type of funding they call the UK EU funding. So it is funded as per the basis of a UK student. So they pay the fees as though you're a UK student, and then give you a stipend. So in my case, since
Okay.
I was an international student, I
Yeah.
put whatever it is I was given as a stipend towards the fees, and that helped take care of the fees while
I see.
I had to do some work to maintain myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That must be tough now. Like
Yeah,
having to, I mean, PhD is already full-time job,
it
full-time
is.
research
It
work,
is. It is.
and now combining it with, another side job to stay financially stable. How were you able to cope with that? And what were you doing exactly, if you
Yeah,
don't mind
yeah. I
sharing
did.
that?
I actually did a whole lot. It's a whole story. Yeah. So so basically, I did a lot of things, a lot of jobs. So when I started, first, I took advantage of the teaching roles in the university. We call it tutoring. So I took advantage of that. So I tutored
Okay.
some courses in the university while I was still a student. And then
Oh,
one thing that was key is financial prudence. It means taking advantage of all the financial tools such as budgeting, yeah,
100%.
yeah, buying what you need, being content, and first
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
foremost,
Yeah.
the thing you should take so importantly is the fact that if you've accepted to do a PhD that is partially
Mhm.
funded or not funded, you just need to
Mhm.
accept that reality. You need to
That,
accept that reality. That is the first step. So once you accept the reality, then things like financial prudence, budgeting, and the rest can then come in to help out. But if you've not accepted the
okay.
reality, no matter how you budget, no matter how you try to be prudent, you just keep being frustrated for the next 3 years of your PhD or 4 years, as the case might be. So
Yeah.
I accepted the reality. Okay, this is going to be my reality for the next 3 to 4 years, most likely. And then I had to be very, very well financially prudent. And then I took advantage of the teaching positions in the university. And then I also looked out for jobs elsewhere. I did some jobs outside of the university as well, in some retail shops as well. And I also looked out for funding from several bodies. I remember then, even as a first-year PhD student, I applied for funding from PTDF in Nigeria. Unfortunately, no, I didn't get it. If I had gotten it, then I wouldn't need to get jobs outside.
I was with a friend recently, about a year and a half ago or so. We also did a video that came to Germany through the PTDF scholarship.
Oh,
and
nice.
through him, I was also able to connect with a couple other guys as well. Yeah, interesting. You know what I really like about what you said is A, that networking, and then B, also accepting the reality. It's like, this is it. Yeah, maybe there are better situations, but there could also be worse situations as well. But this is what you have, and you just need to accept it, But more importantly, it's also that networking. I'm not sure how the conversation with the professor or the researcher that you're working with, how the conversation went, that then they had to ask you. But this definitely could only happen to someone who's open-minded.
Exactly.
Being outspoken, talking to people, and genuinely showing interest in what you do. And then I'm sure they wanted you to stay. They wanted to continue working with you. And that's why the question came up. It's, will I say, more intense, or it's even more realistic here in Europe, in the sense that people mind their business a lot. So don't jump into your business. So if you don't open the door, no one is going to come in. If you don't say what you need, chances are no one is going to ask you, what do you need? Some people do, but it's not like back in Nigeria or other African countries where people like, jump on your business. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. So I think what's coming to my mind now is, why the UK at first? If you had come to Germany directly, you probably would not have to stress a lot about finance. Did you know about Germany back then, or you didn't know about Germany?
I would say I didn't know so much as I know about Germany right now. I think the thing with the UK then was, or probably even now, is the fact that getting into the UK is quite easier than getting into Germany. Yeah, from the application process to the visa process, it's much more easier. Yeah, I would say. Okay, so when I started the visa process and the process for application and all of that, if I was to come to Germany, I don't think I would have met up, with the time I came to UK. Yeah, because I started the process just about 6 months before September starts that year. I don't think you can make it to Germany within 6 months.
No, back then you could. I mean, if it was 10 years ago, you could, because within that time you would get the admission for sure. And then if it's 6 months before October or 6 months before March, April, potentially, because you would get the uni admission. And back then, securing an appointment for the student visa was very easy. You just go, you see the date, you select which day you want, and boom, it's done. But I mean, Germany is definitely not the first choice that would come to the minds of people, especially if you're coming from Nigeria or that English-speaking African country. You need to either know someone who is here, or someone just tells you like, hey, it's possible to study in Germany in English language before you consider Germany. So how did the journey now continue, from, managing your finance, doing the your PhD research work, and then finishing, and now continuing, as a postdoc candidate, now working as a researcher with the Technical University of Hamburg? How did that go from the UK to Germany?
Okay, so I finished my PhD. I had my Viva, which is the defense, or called defense in our local parlance, in 2020, towards the end of 2020. And then I was also a teaching assistant at that point in the university. And then I started a postdoc just in January of 2021. And then in the UK, the post-study hadn't started. So as a PhD student, there was this visa route which you could use for 1 year to work or look for jobs in the UK. But master students couldn't apply for that. They were not eligible for that. It was just for PhD students who had finished. Yeah, so I used that opportunity to do a 1-year postdoc, and then when the funding ran out, and then the visa also ran out, so I had to then go back home. So at that point, I had done 5 years of research, over 5 years of research. I was exhausted. I was tired. I needed a vacation. I needed to just go rest for some time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that was how I went to spend some time in Ghana, and as well, shuttling between Nigeria and Ghana as well. Yeah. And then that was the time I had to make lots of applications, because I knew very, very well that, I wanted just 1 year. So it didn't matter how many applications I made. I made as much as I could. And luckily, I was able to find 1 yes in the technical university handbook.
Interesting. So help me understand exactly how you were applying, where you were applying. Like, did you restrict yourself to the location, or were you just applying anywhere? And where were you getting the information to apply? Like, I want to understand why you applied to the places that you applied to,
Okay, I was open to moving to anywhere in the world. Yeah, I was very much open.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I know some people are particular about certain countries when, looking for jobs, but I was open to moving to anywhere: Canada, US, Europe, even Asia. Yeah. But then they say charity begins at home, and then home for me at that point was the UK, where I was. I would say. Yeah. So I think I made probably 50% of the applications, to UK institutions. Yeah. And then the remaining 50% was spread across the US, Canada, Europe, and other parts of the world. Yeah. Yeah. So one key area was LinkedIn. Yeah. LinkedIn is quite a very useful tool. In LinkedIn, you have lots of recruiters online who are looking for, people to connect to jobs. I think they have some sort of bonus they get. I don't know how it works, but I think they do get paid by the company if they're able to get someone to hire. And I was able to make my profile look, like what they wanted. And there are lots of agents approached me on LinkedIn and were willing to connect me to jobs. That was one. Two is this tool which we underutilize, which I'll call Google. Google has lots of potential. Google. It sounds like everyone knows it, but trust me, Google is a very powerful tool. Actually, the job I'm doing right now, I found it on Google. Yeah. So it's very, very important. 3, networking. Talk to your supervisors, talk to colleagues, talk to anyone you could talk to that has the ability to link you up. It's very, very important. Yeah. So these were the key areas, or the key means via which I was able to apply or get jobs to apply to. Then some other websites as well, like jobs.ac.uk. If you want to do some research jobs, websites like the website for the EPSRC, that's the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council in the UK. Then in Germany, you have things like DAAD. I think they fund some postdoc fellowships as well. Some of these websites were also useful and helpful.
Yeah, definitely. LinkedIn is a powerful tool, and if you know how to use it, then definitely. The good thing about it is the jobs will come looking for you.
Definitely.
Like you mentioned, setting up your profile, because it's basically a marketplace, where talents are exchanged for other benefits. So if you set up your profile on your store, then people will come, shop for that thing which you have to offer to them.
The goal is to actually sell yourself as much as you can. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, you sell yourself, 100%. You tailor your CV, your cover letter, everything. But if possible, you can consult a career agent, people that can help, review your CV and things like that. And don't underestimate the power of your colleagues. Yeah. If you've done a master's degree, you've done a PhD, your colleagues could add 1 or 2 things to your CV, help you review and all of that.
Definitely. Yeah. Do you have like free CV samples that you don't mind sharing, so that we can also offer that to people who might want to just see an example of what you used?
Yeah, I could share. Yeah, I could share.
Okay, good. And I will put that in the description so that people can just have access to it, to download it.
Sure.
Use it. We're coming gradually to the end. One thing which I I always think about is people who are doing postdoc. It's like after your PhD and then you stay in the research field, versus those people who go, to the industry. You've been researching now for so many years, over 5 years. How many years now have you been researching?
About 6.5 now.
Okay, so is this where you see yourself, like for the longest term, you want to stay in the academia, or do you plan to, move to the industry at some point?
Yeah, I've been asked this question several times. Yeah, but basically after this point, I think I want to move into the industry. Yeah, it's always good to have a holistic view of everything. A little bit here, a little bit here, there rather. So I, at this point, have had lots of experience in academia, and I think it will be quite interesting for me to see what the other side has to offer. Although there's this joke that they say that the industry pays better, but then it's not about the money per se. For me, it's about the experience, to see how things are done on the other side. It makes you a better researcher. And at the end of the day, when you've tested both sides, you can then decide where you want to be. And at that point, you'll be making an informed decision, not just a guess.
100%. 100%. I totally agree with you. And especially like in my case, when I finished my master's, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next for a short period. But I definitely knew that I wanted to do multiple things. I wanted to have that freedom to jump on a couple of things and then decide where I want to be. And I also knew that, I wanted to go more into the tech space, even though my background is in biochemistry and molecular biology. I knew also that I wanted to do a lot of, digital stuff, software development. So it's like, on one hand, you're studying something, but on the other hand, your heart is kind of elsewhere. So for me, it was like at the end of my master's, I knew, okay, I'm done with, everything within the academic area. Now I'm just going to jump into the entrepreneurial space or go into the industry and just explore. Have that, I call it freedom, to be able to try different things. Because within the academia, to some extent, there are kind of some standards that you have to follow, some procedures and all. Because again, if you're researching, then you don't want to be exploring everything possible, So I think for me, it was clear after some points. However, I think one also, just like you, needs to try out something. And if you're going to jump onto something, have a good reason for doing that.
Yes.
And money should not be like a key factor, because you would just be so disappointed at the end of the day. Because I mean, in your case now, you can stay where you are right now, or you could explore something else. You've seen both worlds, and then you stand in a better position to take the next step. Before we round up, help us understand exactly what your research at the Technical University of Hamburg is focused on. I just would like, first, for me to understand, definitely, but also for the audience who are watching or listening to this right now, so they understand exactly what you're working on, and also what are the use cases in everyday life.
Okay, so my institute in the university is the Institute for Chemical Reaction Engineering, and we have the expertise of making profile measurements in reactors where you use catalysts. So it's more or less like heterogeneous catalysis. So you could have, by the way, let me define what catalysts are. Catalysts are used to enhance reaction rates in chemistry. So when you have catalysts that are in the same phase with the reactants, for instance, you have a solid catalyst and solid reactants, that's homogeneous catalysis. When you have probably solid catalyst and gaseous reactants, that's heterogeneous catalysis. So basically, my institute has the expertise to make profile measurements in reactors where reactions are ongoing with a catalyst. And you need to make measurements to understand what's going on in the reactor. So measurements of temperature, measurements of concentration, and measurements of pressure and all of that, to be able to understand reaction rates and all of that. So for me, I'm making measurements of temperature and concentration using laser spectroscopy. The term spectroscopy is just telling you how light interacts with matter and how you can get useful information from that interaction between light and matter. So with laser spectroscopy, you use lasers and then you shoot laser light into your reactors and you're able to obtain the signal and process it to get information on temperature and concentration.
This is so cool. I saved the best for the last, Let's have some example use cases now in everyday life. Where does this come into application?
So basically you have products in the market. For instance, your fertilizers, other products made from chemicals. These are made from chemical reactions. For instance, we have partners we work with, and some of those partners are into the production of some products like fertilizers. You know very well that fertilizers are very important when it comes to the food industry. If not, you all go hungry. For instance, you want to produce some nitrogen-based fertilizers. Those fertilizers are produced from several reactions that include ammonia, that include oxygen, nitrogen, and all of these reactions need to be catalyzed for the reaction to give you the actual product you want, and that is called selectivity. It involves selectivity because a particular reaction could give you 2 or 3 products, and you want to probably optimize the production of one of those products. So that is why you probably then need a catalyst that will be selective towards that particular product. And some of these other byproducts might be harmful to the environment, and then you use catalysts that will actually give you less of those products and more of the wanted products.
So basically you control the reaction, and direct it to the type of end products that you want to have.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And how is this industry in Nigeria? Let's take it back home for a moment.
Wow, quite interesting. I don't really know much about that industry in Nigeria, I would say, but I know very well that we import fertilizers in Nigeria, I would say. Yeah, so if we import fertilizer, then it tells you that there's a gap in fertilizer production, and that could be a key area where investors can come in, because I know in the north there's largely agricultural intervention and all of that in the north. So investors who are keen can come in and build fertilizer plants, build some chemical plants to produce useful fertilizers that can help our agricultural industry. So there's a gap there, I would say, obviously.
I mean, investors will bring the money, but we need the brains like you to bring the solution.
Of course, you need the money and the brains. Yeah, the money would not do the work by itself.
Would you not close that gap for us in Nigeria?
I don't have the money.
Well, what are we talking about? Let's seek funding. One thing I realized is money has never been the problem in this world. There's more than enough money. And people are also willing to spend this money if you give them a good reason, Yeah,
we could.
You say maybe we team up and close that gap,
Why not? Why not? We can look into that, definitely. I mean, the whole point of coming abroad is not just to run away from your home country. It's to gather knowledge, gather expertise, and then come back to the country when the time is ripe, and then use that knowledge to develop your country.
Definitely.
It's very important. Yeah.
No, that's so true. I mean, I was talking with a friend recently, and then she told me that, if we go abroad and we don't come back, whenever we do, we will meet the country the way we left it, because no one's going to take care of the country but us. Thank you so much, Precious, for taking out the time to do this. So just before we run it up, what message would you like to pass on to the people, someone listening to this right now, someone watching this video right now, who is also dreaming about moving abroad, doing something? What would be your final message to them? Well, not final, they're still going to hear from you, but for this episode.
Yeah, I would say stay positive. If you can dream it, you can live it. If you can dream it, it is 100%. Very, very well possible. I was once in your shoe, and here I am today. So your dream is very valid. So all you probably need to do is to go about it the right way. You need to network properly. You need to have access to the right information, and you need to stay positive. And definitely, it might take time, but eventually it will come.
100%. People keep saying, if you can dream it, you can live it. It's so true. It's so true. Because that's what you think about every day. And the more you think about it, the more your brain begins to connect to the possible solutions. But if you don't think about it, then your brain is not going to work in that direction. Okay. Well, guys, it's been such a pleasure having Precious here with us today. I hope you could learn a thing or two. For everything that we talked about, you can check the description below. I will put a template to the CV that Precious talked about, and I will also put the written version of this conversation so that you can also go read, get more insight, and also connect with us in the community. Thank you so much, Precious.
Thank you,
It's
Mike.
really lovely having you here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.